In the last video, I showed you how to connect external data sources in your Power App and how we can use galleries to show that data to our users. In today's video, however, we are going to shift from external to internal data because I am going to tell you everything you need to know about variables and collections. My name is Jochen, I am a Power Platform consultant at Cegeka, and I suggest we take a deep dive into our app's internal memory. Let's go. Hey guys, welcome back to this beginner series on Microsoft Power Apps. It is the third video in the series already, and if you want to start from the beginning, there is a link down in the video description to the entire playlist. Binge it if you want to, because we are building a office supplies ordering app from scratch. But if you are here for just that internal memory stuff, you are more than welcome as well, because we are going to start with variables. Think about your phone, for example. A lot of stuff inside apps on your own phone are stored within the phone's internal memory, because otherwise we would be constantly depending on external data sources and their connection, and we don't want that. And it's the exact same thing in Power Apps. Variables, once again, are stored inside the app's memory, and there are two types that we can use. Let's start with local variables. In my opinion, two things you need to know. Local variables are also called context variables, and that is because we can only use them within the context of one screen in our app. So if I were to use a variable on this very home screen that you see right now, we can only use it there, and we can't use it in the new order screen or in the existing order screen. And the second thing you have to know is literally the formula you have to use to give a value to your local variable. And that formula goes a little bit like this. Update context, open the brackets, open the curly brackets, the name of your variable. This can be anything you want, just give it a name. I like to start with var, and then maybe local because it's a local variable, but this is a free choice really. So once you've chosen the name, of course, then you go colon, saying, okay, the variable called var local test in my case, I want to give the value, that's what the colon is for, test. And as far as I'm concerned, that is all you need to know about local variables. The second type we can use is called a global variable. Again, two things I want you guys to know. Number one, you can use a global variable throughout your entire app. So you are no longer limited to one screen and one screen only. Nope, a global variable you can use everywhere. And the second thing, you guessed it, the formula you have to use. Instead of saying update context, it's somewhat simpler for a global variable, because it's simply the word set, open the brackets, give it again a variable name, whatever you want, comma, instead of a colon, and then your value that you actually want to give to that variable. And honestly, that's it. Should this formula be executed, this would be a local variable which we can only use on this screen, and the second line right here, this would define a global variable which we can use throughout the entire app. One little side note that I will give you on the use of variables. A local variable is somewhat more performant than a global variable. And I'm not talking about major differences here, but I just want you to know that if you know for sure you're only going to use a variable inside the context of one screen in your app, always choose a local variable. Just make that a best practice. That's basically the best tip that I can give you. But if you're not really sure, or if you know that you're going to use the same variable on other screens as well, always go for a global variable. So I've removed this formula for now because I don't really need it there. I am going to go to my new order screen, and I'm going to do a little preparation first, because I want a beautiful shopping cart image right in between these two buttons. Really simple, of course. Insert and then look for image, click, place it wherever you want it, and I'm gonna go for something like this. And instead of that default image, I'm gonna choose my shopping basket, which I uploaded earlier, by the way. If this is the first time you do it, just go background image and choose upload. And I do want to have this quite transparent, so there is a transparency property here on the right. A number between 0 and 1, I'm gonna go for 0.85. Perfect. That was just a little prep. Now it's time to apply the knowledge about variables that I just shared with you. So I'm going to go to my clear shopping basket button, to the onSelect property, which is false by default, which literally means do nothing. I don't want that. I want to do something. So I'm going to delete this and say update context, local variable time. Let's put in some curly brackets as well. And I'm going to say var local item counter : 0. So whenever this button is clicked, there will be a local variable called var local item counter set to the value 0. And I'm gonna copy this formula, so Ctrl V, go to my order button in this horizontal gallery, also on the onSelect, which is now set to select parent, which is a default value for any button inside the gallery. Again, delete this and paste my update context formula. But I don't want to set it to 0 when I click this button. Basically, I want to do a +1, right? Because if we click this button, we are actually ordering an item every time we click it. So what I'm going to say instead of a 0 is var local item counter, you can select it here, +1. So let's go into preview mode and see if this does anything, right? So let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Clear, so it should be set to 0 again, but as you notice, we can't really see it anywhere. Or can we? There is a very handy menu button hidden behind these 3 dots called Variables, and you can immediately see that it's ordered by screen because local variables, again important, are only to be used within the context of one screen. You can see we have the new order screen and there is a variable called var local item counter with the value 0. If I go back into preview mode and I click it 3 times, exit preview mode, go back to this menu, it now has the value 3. So our 2 buttons, or the logic behind the buttons, actually works. But obviously I also want our app's user to see that value because then he or she knows how many items they have. So what I'm going to do is add a label, place it over my shopping cart image, central alignment. Let's go for bold and 15. And as the text value, I'm gonna say var local item counter and, so a concatenation of 2 pieces of text, space items, close the quotes. And if I now go back into preview mode and I click the reset button, if you will, the clear shopping basket, you can see that it resets to 0. If I click any of these buttons, every time I click it, 1 gets added to the value until I reset again. And now I'm going to do a very similar thing, but this time for a global variable. So, same button, clear shopping basket, and we're going to add a line of code, so we need a semicolon, never forget that. Again, global variable this time, so we're going to go with the set formula. My variable will be called var global total price, comma, and I'm going to set it to, again, 0 of course, because as I mentioned, this is kind of our reset button, or clear shopping basket button, so these 2 things for now need to happen. I'm going to copy this line of code because in my order button we're going to do a similar thing, semicolon, paste, and again of course here I don't want to set it to 0, but I want to add the price of my chosen item, if you will, the element where I'm clicking the button in. That price is the price that I want to add to whatever value my var global total price already has at that point. So both of these things will happen when we click any of these order buttons. And of course we want to do the same thing. We're going to add a label. So copy, paste. Let's align them like this. And instead of saying this, because we already have that, I am going to paste this formula. And as you can see, something weird is happening because now it just says USD, but that is because we haven't clicked any buttons yet. So our variable is kind of non-existent / blank at this point. That's why it's not showing anything. But if I go into preview mode and I click this button, for example, and then I start ordering stuff, you can see that, for example, $2 is actually added to my total price until I reset it. And let me quickly show you the difference if I go back to variables, because we still have that new order screen tab right here, which has the local variable for that screen alone. But we now also have a tab called global variables, and this has our var global total price with the value of 0. And just to show you the difference in usage, if I go back to my home screen and I just add a little label here, and instead of just saying text, I'm gonna say var, and you can immediately see what's happening. The var local item counter doesn't even show up in here because it's a different screen from where we have used it already, and that means we simply can't use it here. We can only use our global variable called var global total price. And I know this still kind of looks weird, but that is just because I did the formatting like this. But I have a solution, because let's think about this. If our shopping basket is already empty, A, what is the use of the user being able to click any of these buttons? Because clear shopping basket. Why? Because the shopping basket is empty. Confirm order. There is nothing to confirm. And B, when the basket is empty, do we really need to see the image with the two labels on it? I don't think so. So let's fix that. And let's fix it properly because I'm going to start with naming these controls that I added. And now I'm going to group them. So I'm going to select them while holding down Control, right click or click the three dots, Group, rename my group, and go to its visible property, which by default is set to true, which is not what I want. I want to make this a dynamic value because I only want this to be true if our shopping basket contains at least one item. So let's translate that human logic into code, and it's probably way simpler than you thought because I can just say var local item counter is bigger than 0. And you can immediately see that the whole group disappears because the value of our variable is 0 at this point in time, so this evaluates to false, making our whole group invisible. But if I go into preview mode and the moment I click one of these buttons, you can guess what happens, right? Magic! And I can keep clicking it as much as I want, but if I click the clear shopping basket button, it immediately disappears because at that point the formula is re-evaluated and evaluates to false, which immediately hides our entire group. And we're going to apply the same logic to the display mode property of our buttons because I still want the buttons to be visible when the shopping basket is empty, but I don't want them to be clickable, and we can do that. So select one of the buttons, go to display mode, and instead of saying edit, which is the default value and it means always clickable, we're going to use an if statement this time because if var local item counter is bigger than 0, which means at least one item is in fact in the shopping basket, then I want it to be edit. If it's not 0, then I want the display mode to be disabled. Close the brackets, and the same thing happens at this point in time. Our variable, because I hit the clear shopping basket button last, is 0, so it evaluates to disabled. The moment I click in preview mode, I click one of these buttons, you can see that it becomes clickable. And we could set the exact same formula on the other button, but we are lazy developers in the end, so select the other button, display mode, and simply link it to the display mode of the button we already did. So button clear shopping basket NOS dot display mode. Final test, preview mode, order, all good. Clear shopping basket, boom, this becomes invisible and our two buttons become disabled. For now, that is everything I want you guys to know about variables. If you have any questions whatsoever, drop them down in the comment section, but I am going to move on to that other internal memory data structure in today's video, collections. Now, as we saw, variables are just one piece of data inside the app's memory, right? Collections are also inside that same memory, but we can compare them with a table or a list, if you will. So for example, a list of multiple records ideal for our shopping basket, spoiler, and my main goal for this app is to replace those external data connections that we established last video with collections. So we no longer have to rely on a direct connection to Sharepoint in our case, but we can simply start using the internal memory of the app instead. So what I'm gonna do is take a copy of that data that is now on Sharepoint, put it in a collection, and use that collection as a base, as the data source, if you will, for our galleries. And a very good place to take such a copy, for example, because you can do it in a lot of places really, but a good place to start is in the onVisible property of your home screen. Because if we do it here, every time this screen loads, it's kind of a data refresh going on because a new copy is taken from those Sharepoint lists. And before I'm gonna put in the code, I just want to tell you about 4 major functions that you can use when you are working with collections. First of all, you have the clear function, which is pretty self-explanatory, I think. It clears out your collection. It wipes the list. Second and third functions are really similar because the second function is a collect, which you can simply use to put something in a collection, and the third function will be remove to take it back out. And the fourth function that I really want you to know is a clear collect, which is simply a combination of our first 2 functions. the app is simply going to clear the collection first and then put in what we say that it has to collect. So, on visible property of the home screen, and I am going to say clear collect, open the brackets. First, it needs the name of the collection, so you can, like a variable, give it whatever name you want to. I'm gonna go with call categories, comma, and now it needs to know what it has to collect. In other words, what we wanted to put inside of the collection. And that is going to be the entire data source called categories. Close the brackets, and I'm gonna do the same thing, so semicolon. Same thing, clear collect, call items, and fill that with our items data source. So for both data sources, this formula is now exactly doing what I wanted it to do, copying the data from our external data sources to our internal data source, being our collections. And just like variables, you have a very handy menu right here, collections. Note that we didn't really trigger it yet because we haven't navigated back to the home screen, so that onVisible property is not triggered at this point. But still, our app already knows that there will be a call categories collection and a call items collection, and you can see all these fields right here. These are all the fields that are actually present in the Sharepoint list. But if I go to another screen and then back to the home screen, now our onVisible is triggered, and if I go back to my collections view, you can see that both collections are now filled with actual data. And one very important thing to note, it will always show only the 5 first elements of any collection. So don't be fooled by that. It literally says it here. It's a preview of the first 5 items in any collection. So now we have filled our 2 collections, but of course our galleries on the new order screen, being this vertical gallery for the categories and the horizontal gallery for the items, have no idea that these collections even exist. Because, for example, our vertical gallery still has the external data source on Sharepoint, categories, as its data source. How are we going to fix that? Really simple, and you probably guessed it. Instead of categories, we're gonna say call categories. Because the data is identical, since we literally made a copy. The gallery doesn't care, it recognizes all the fields. And we're gonna do the same thing for the horizontal gallery for the items, and all we have to do now is say call items instead of items, and that's it. Again, that call items collection has the exact same data as our items external data source, so all our fields, all our formulas will simply keep working. So far, we have only used collections to make a copy of the external data sources, right? So all the fields are just copied one by one, and it's the exact same data structure as the external data source. But now we are going to build our own custom collection, being our shopping basket. Because yes, you don't have to take a literal copy of whatever, you can handpick the fields, you can rename the fields if you want to, and we are gonna do just that. So let's go back to our buttons again. Let's start with the clear shopping basket button. In the onSelect property, where I already put 2 lines of code, we are going to add a 3rd line. And this is going to be clear collect call shopping basket, comma, empty list, and that's it. So literally clear out a collection called call shopping basket. I don't even care what's in it at that point in time, just clear it out. And that other button, of course, we have to expand that formula as well. 3rd line of code, so semicolon, and I'm gonna paste this funky looking formula. And it probably looks more difficult than it is. Bear with me. All we are doing as the 3rd line of code here is collecting this thing between the curly brackets, which I'll get back to in a minute, and put that in the collection called call shopping basket. And the thing that we are actually putting in there consists of 3 fields. Item ID with this value, this item.item ID, a field called item name, this item.title, and a field called price, this item.item price. These 3 things are literally the field names that I want to give, but just know that you can name the fields to whatever you want if you do it like this. And if I close this and I now go back into preview mode, I order a couple of pens, let me clear it out, order again, boom. And if I now go to my collections again, you can see that I still have the call categories and call items, but I also have a 3rd collection now called call shopping basket. And instead of having all those fields like we have in items, because it's basically these records that I also put in the call shopping basket collection. But now I said which fields that I wanted to have and I named them myself. So we have item ID, item name, and price with the values that I actually clicked the order button of. So 4 things I want you to remember from this episode: local variables, global variables, custom collections like the shopping basket, and collections where you simply copy an external data source, put it in a collection in the internal memory of the app itself. So now that we have all the data structures in place in our app, both external and internal, it is time to get a little fancy. And that is exactly what I'm going to show you in the next video, because then we'll talk about overlays, pop-ups, and all that jazz to make your app prettier. And as always, guys, drop your questions in the comment section. Don't forget to like the videos and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.